So let's make our best effort. I'll be back in a few minutes. Hi, Fernanda. How was your day?
Hi, Doc. Fine, thank you.
Recording in progress.
Perfect. Oh, what's happening? Okay, I don't know. I'm connecting again. More devices. But I think it's corrected. Yeah. So let's start preparing the slide presentation. Okay, can you watch my screen, Fernanda? Or any of you? Denise. Hi, Denise.
Hi, I can watch, the slides, contents.
Okay, perfect. I'm proving because, well, my laptop is there. I cannot open the Office package, the programs. And well, I'm sharing the slides for myself and I'm testing a program that is running gratefully. So in that way, well, let's wait for your classmates a few minutes. I think 2 minutes, no more, because it's a long presentation again. And well, here in La Paz is raining. I hope we can work properly. So let's wait a little bit, okay? In order to get more students. Okay, we are 4. Do you want to wait a little bit, or it's better to start now? It's your choice. There is no trouble for me. Well, okay, let's go ahead. Okay, instead of that, it's going to take more time than it's expected. Today we have our session. Yeah. Okay, let's go. We are going to check the integumentary system, the skin. Specifically, we are going to talk about the eyes, infections, and as a plus, we are going to talk about the nose, okay, the smell, the sense of smell. About the integumentary system, we have to check again our anatomical review. It's very important for us to consider this. You know, we have all the anatomical structures described in the picture, considering the writing, the correct writing way, the details that we have to check and prepare, of course, for memorizing. So let's try to do it, okay? Moreover, we have this other picture, this slide that is showing us the difference between thick skin, the hairless, and thin skin with hair. You can watch a few differences just as an information, but of course we have anatomical details to consider. So in that way, check it, memorize it. Of course, we are going to use it during homework. We also know that the structures of fingernails and toenails are similar. And this is a part of the skin. It is an appendix, so we have to take it in count, okay? In that way, the anatomical references, again, for checking and practicing and reading. Don't forget, this is a new vocabulary to take in count. And it's more common that we can think about, that we can practice, and that's why I'm showing this, okay? Going ahead, we have our chart, the one that we really know. We are going to talk about skin, sebaceous glands, sweat glands, hair, and nails. We have the combining forms that we are checking all the classes, and taking in account the way of combining with vowels, and how to add it, and how to consider the word root, and the primary functions that we all know from the medical school. So in that way, check it, read it, try to catch as much as vocabulary as you can, because it's important. That's one of the, I think, the most important objective in this course, in this class. Talking about the word parts, we have to consider them as prefixes. In skin, we don't have too much suffixes, so that's the most important part, I think. Of course, with the meanings, in order to construct the medical term and to deduct maybe the meaning, in order to catch what we are talking about, and not making or not mixing ideas, okay? Now we have this first question, very important. So consider this. What is a skin lesion? Well, it refers to any skin area that has different characteristics from the surrounding skin, including color, shape, size, and texture. So taking it in account, considering this definition, we can watch and talk about it in order to describe a skin lesion. In this slide, I'm showing you primary lesions, the most common ones. In any book of dermatology, you can find this classification, this description with pictures, because it's easier to understand in that way. We have the macule, tumor, vesicle, papule, plaque, bulla, nodule, wheal, pustule. Okay, so in that order, we're going to check more lesions. Now, secondary lesions. The scales, fissure, scar, crust, ulcer, atrophy. So taking them in count, I think it's not as hard as it could be. I know this chart, that's the one of the most important, Why I'm giving you this key? Because this chart is the one that I'm going to use for preparing the final test and homework, because we have here details, okay? Of course, there are more charts, but this is one of the most important. But consider this, that I'm going to take it in account for homework and test. Danielle, can you listen to me? Danielle, I'm taking in account attendance and participation. Okay, there is no problem. With this vocabulary, we take in account the medical term, the common word, with common word, how patient gives an explanation about the situation, how patients refer to the skin lesion. You can see macula and papule, patients call it a spot. It's the same. So while evaluating, while watching and checking this situation, you can get the definition of this. So don't be upset. Don't worry if a patient gives you the same description. It's very common to happen. A nodule is called lump. And you have the feature, the key idea, what we are talking about. It's a large papule. So let's consider this. Patients, for example, a bulla, they sell a small blister. For bulla, they said blister. You can see the difference. A small blister and blister, just the difference of size. So don't worry about it and get in practice by talking. Pustule, it's not a common word for patients. They just said, I have this lesion and it's filled with pus. So that's the way they can describe it to you. And then you can practice with them in that order. Moreover, you have another lesions Scales, the same scales. Cicatrix or cicatrices, you can see the difference by writing. And the scar called by the patient, we can report it by cicatrix. The nevus or the birthmark. The birthmark is, of course, the common word, and we also use this term while talking between colleagues in the medical, in a medical term, or as a medical term describing some kind of nevus. The fleshy nevus are moles. They said, I have a mole, it's a fleshy nevus. The verruga, it's a wart. Furuncle, a boil. So you can see the synonyms. Synonyms for patients, how they express, how they tell to us, and then how we should talk about it. Note, the liquid, often yellow, formed as a result of infection is pus. We all know this. If the lesion is pustular, it's filled with pus. Of course, we all know this meaning from the med school. Just for reminding you and not missing the idea. We have in this slide some human skin conditions in order to get more vocabulary. We have acne, and we all know how it really works, how it is. We have the urticaria, we have pityriasis, we have the bruise, eczema, lichen planus, psoriasis, and hives. Okay, check them again, more vocabulary to practice. Again, we have another picture. Now there are pictures, photography showing us more skin lesions with more details, with more ways of talking about it. A barrow, comedon, macule, papilloma, papule, petachia and purpura, plaque, pustule, scale, telangiectasia, vesicle, and wheal. So practice the vocabulary, memorize these words, memorize the skin lesions, okay? Going ahead, we have more pictures, maybe showing the same. A new one is the patch. You know, it's a circumscribed flat decoloration, major than 1 centimeter. So let's consider this and check the vocabulary, memorize this. Here in this slide from this one and some more, I'm giving you a few description of the skin lesion in order to take in account, to consider how it is. Just as an information, of course, these details from centimeter, sizes, borders, maybe I'm not taking in account for the test, but it's important to take it, to associate, okay? Again, the wheel, skull, the crust, the fissure, the excoriation, the linear also erosion, the erosion, lichenification, the scars. So you can see more slides, more pictures with this. Well, it's a way of working. This primary morphology of the unidentified rash, we can follow this. It's an idea how it works, how we can define and get the differences in order to get maybe a possible diagnosis. Just an information slide for taking in account, and it's possible to do it in that way. Going ahead. Talking about rashes, well, we have again blackened words in order to consider the vocabulary and the description for talking about these new ways of talking, okay? Fernanda, can you listen to me?
Yes, okay.
Yes, can you read this slide, please?
Of course. Rashes. A single skin lesion can be regular or irregular in shape. When there are multiple lesions, especially macules or papules, the result is a rash or spot, common language. For example, the rash of an infectious disease such as rubella. A rash is said to erupt or break out. My little boy has broken out in spot in a rash all over him.
Yes, Mari. Okay, thank you so much, Fernanda. So you can see the description is clear, regular or irregular, multiple or single, a rash, as we were talking about the spot is the common way. And we have this bubble showing us how patients could express like this. My little boy has broke out is the verb, the phrasal verb that we are commonly using for these expressions, for showing this situation. That's why it's important for us to consider this and take in account in order to work on it, and don't forget how we can listen to this idea, this situation from patients. And we have two options: has broken out in spots or in a rash. It depending on the way that patients are expressing, and of course the part of the body that is affected. So consider this, the verb that we are going to use, of course, it's important for us to get it in mind. Moreover, we have the following features of skin lesions that we have to consider: location, shape, size, color, and type, just as an information to take in account. And this is the order that we usually use to describe these situations, these lesions, these structures, okay? And well, in this slide, we can see 3 kids and it's a typical distribution of papillus comatosis eruption, okay? So just an information for checking vocabulary and taking into account that it's important. Well, go ahead. For a rash, we also know the distribution and grouping. The distribution, they are widespread on many parts of the body or localized, just one part only. So you can see the vocabulary, widespread or localized. Or grouping, scattered, more or less evenly spread out, or in clusters, small groups. So you can see, you can catch these differences, you can see taking into account the slides and considering that it's a way of watching these skin lesions. Going ahead. Well, we have here another information slide that is showing us the normal skin. In the picture, everything is organized, and with the eczema, we have the penetration of allergens and then how it's changing. Just as an information, again, to consider vocabulary and the way of expression on this. Again, we have the types of rashes, considering some differences. Most of them are described in the previous slides, but now we have new ones. For example, the viral rash, or the poison ivy or poison oak, the drug or food reaction, that it's important too, the heat rash, the intertrigo, and the bug bites. Very common situations, of course. And we all consider this every day. For example, while reading the bug bites, red raised bumps specific to the area of the bug bite that can be intensely itchy and inflamed and can ooze or pus when agitated. So you can see more vocabulary to check, to practice, and memorize. Of course, you can check it during the workshop, unless it's not too much time for talking. Again, information slide talking about the causes of rashes all over the body, all over the child's body. And we have viral infections, autoimmune reactions, slap-check syndrome, fungal infections, Neisseria meningitidis, very important, humidity, allergic rash. And of course, there are more causes, but these are the most common that I found. I hope they are useful. And now we have some adjectives that I know this slide is not pretty good. Yeah, it's little ugly. I don't like it too much because it's handwriting. I don't know, but it's from the net. But these adjectives are useful to describe a rash, and it's a guide just for remembering and not losing the idea how we must express about it. Talking about the color, talking about the morphology, we have a nice way, for example, all oozing and gross. You can see oozing in that way of like a plaque of pus all over the skin. It's not comfortable to watch it or to treat it because it's painful. And we can say small, medium, large, really large. Well, it's an example. And freaking huge. So consider this. So just for giving you more details, more words. Now we have injuries to the skin. So Gabriela, can you listen to me?
Yes, Doc, I can.
Yes, can you read this slide, please?
Yes. Open wound injuries are some of the most common types of bodily injury a bodily injury a person can sustain. Open wounds are characterized by a break in the teeth of the skin that can cause bleeding. The cause of open wounds are endless, and they can be classified as internal or external, or a combination of each.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this reading. So you can see, again, black and words for some vocabulary, it's not too much at this moment, but that's a way, the wound, it's a very important situation to take in count. In the picture, we see the amputation, the avulsion, the crush injury, the puncture, abrasion, and laceration. Of course, there are some more. In order to take into account that, it's important to check them, okay? So, going ahead. Well, the types of wounds, well, of course, I'm always sending some jokes. No, really, this is just for having fun. The types of wounds are, well, few of them are here. We have the normal skin, the incision wound, laceration wound, abrasion. Then we have puncture wound, penetration wound, contusion, hematoma. So you can check the difference of all of them. I think it's a very easy slide to take in count. And let's go ahead. We have the description of each one in these slides. Going ahead, showing us more details. Okay. Juliana, can you listen to me?
Yes, Miss. Good night.
Yes, can you read this slide, please? I need to take participation.
Puncture wounds are characteristically small and round but can become deep if enough force is applied. Puncture wounds are formed by sharp point objects like pencil or nails. Such wounds can cause moderate bleeding as well as infection if not treated early on. Laceration wounds are made by jagged, irregular tearing of the skin that can be caused by a number of sharp or blunt objects like knives or other sharp tools. Lacerations are similar in size and appearance to incisions made in the operating room, but often cause greater bleeding or scarring.
Okay, thank you so much. So you can see here we have some expressions to take into account. For example, early on, it's one to take care about the skin lesion or wound or something like that in the correct moment, not losing or missing time or missing care in order to prevent infections. Moreover, we have more vocabulary, for example, blunt objects or sharp or blunt objects, more words to consider, or jagged or tearing, That kind of words are the ways that maybe some patients can describe how the wound was produced. Now we have the abrasion and the ulcer. Of course, we during the med school, we have the experience to check this, or maybe with our patients. And now we can consider this in order to practice vocabulary and reading. Angelica, can you listen to me?
Yes, Doc.
Yes, can you read this slide, please?
Okay, bueno, ulcers are surface wounds that develop when skin tissues decompose in the presence of a skin source. Ulcers are most commonly located on the lower half of the body, like the legs and the feet. In the middle cases, ulcers will only cause damage to the top layer of the skin. More serious ulcers can cause the degradation of all three layers of the skin. Bacterial and fungal infection and poor blood circulation are associated with the formation of ulcers. Abrasion are made by the scraping away of the skin, commonly caused by road rash or root burns. More often than not, abrasions only cause superficial damage to the epidermis, top layer of the skin, followed by little to not bleeding. Whatever, in the case of serious motorcycle or car accidents, road rash can lead to the significant bleeding and scarring.
Okay, thank you so much. So again, in these paragraphs, we have more vocabulary to check, as you can see. More words, more descriptions. Even in books, we can find the same way of talking that is used in this slide. About the burn wounds, we consider them as very important skin lesion, I mean. And well, we have to talk about them. Lucia, can you listen to me? Lucia.
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you. Can you read this slide, please?
Yeah, sure. Burn wounds occur when the skin comes in contact with intense sources of heat like fire, electricity, and direct sunlight. Burns are classified by degrees, first to fourth. According to how many layers of skin are damaged, depending on the severity of the burn, a person might experience excessive scarring on large areas of skin. With first and second degree burns, little to no scarring may result.
Okay, thank you so much. So you can see that just the grades on the slide we have, well, in the picture, we have a great example how it works, how it is. And then we'll check the vocabulary of the paragraphs, please, it's important. This is an information slide, just talking about the first, second, and third degree burn, taking into account the layer of the skin involved and how patients can describe it, also known as is how patients usually describe, or maybe between colleagues, depending on the context we are talking about. Again, another example of the degree of a burn and determined by the layers of the skin that are involved. It's an example just for taking into account and checking again. And now we have this extract from a medical book. In that way, we have the same descriptions that we are checking. And we have in the black and words the vocabulary that we must practice and maybe memorize, considering that it's important. For example, the blunt force, okay? Mechanical injuries to the skin are divided into those caused by a blunt force, such as a punch from a fist, and those caused by a sharp force, such as a knife. So injuries from a blunt forces, abrasion, contusion, laceration. Injuries from a sharp forces, incised wound, and penetrating wound. So into these paragraphs, we have more synonyms to talk about. For example, about abrasion, also called a graze or a scratch. So you can see talking about synonyms, ways of talking about it, we must consider these new words, okay? Moreover, we have a contusion that it's also called a bruise. Bruise, yes, that's the most common way of talking with patients. And laceration, also called tear. Tear, so consider these synonyms in order to talk. The incised wound is called a cut, we know about it. And the penetration wound, and not always use a synonym, but we can talk about it is greater than a superficial length of the wound. For example, a stab wound caused by a knife. So we know what's a penetration wound. Maybe we had experience attending or assisting one of these skin lesions. About the wound healing, we have the process here just as an example for checking more vocabulary. For example, the exudate, that we never talk about it in previous slides or previous presentations. The blood clot. The clot is that the structure that like jelly that adds to the injury, to the wound. And then we can take it out and it starts bleeding again, and again it's forming the clot. So we have to consider, and the structure that is solid is the scab. We usually take it out and we can see some liquid, the exudate, and then the skin has to start again the process of healing. So that's just a simple way of talking about it. I think it could be useful. Now we have a case report. There's an interesting one, and we have again blackened words for considering the vocabulary. And now checking this case report, we can consider taking count how to express in a situation like this. Roger, can you listen to me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Can you read this slide, please?
Of course. A 9-year-old boy presented to the accident and emergency department after the stumbled and fell while running in a wood. He had received a blow to the head from a rock and had been scratched by bushes. On examination, a vertical laceration 1 centimeter long was noted on the bridge of his nose, just right of the midline. There were a number of superficial scratches on the right side of his forehead. His right upper lid was mildly contused.
Thank you so much. So as we were talking in the last classes, the last workshops, now we are checking again how to report this. And as you can see, everything is in past, talking with medical expressions, talking with the correct chronological situation. I mean, so it's, you can see it's very, very important to check, to practice, and take these examples in order to start writing down, okay? Now let's talk about sores. The word sore is a popular term for many different types of skin lesions, especially infected lesions. If you see pus and red skin around, it's a sore. That's the way that patients and even between colleagues we are going to talk about it. A pressure sore is a skin ulcer caused by pressure. For example, the pressure of lying in bed for long periods, also known as bed sores or the cubitus ulcer. A cold sore is a lesion caused by herpes simplex. Note, the adjective sore means painful. For example, a sore throat. Sore is similar to pain, but when we talk about the skin, sore is a lesion that of course is painful. That's why we use this word. It's a very common way of talking about it between patients, as I was telling you at the beginning. And don't forget the synonyms. For example, bed sore, the cubitus ulcer, or a pressure sore. In that way, we take it in count. The cold sore, well, we all know have seen the herpes simplex surrounding the mouth, the lips maybe, or surrounding eyes, or another part of the body. That's a cold sore. Why cold? Because the inside of the lesion is white or is without color. That's why it's called cold sore. And now we have the pathologies of the integumentary system, just as an information, you know, just for checking how to write down the situations and how to consider when they are maybe classifying, okay? We have 3 charts of this. It's a lot of information. Of course, there's not all of the situations, all of the skin lesions, skin wounds we can find, but I think it's useful at this moment. And now again, abbreviations. I know it's a lot of information I'm sending, but it's important. Why? Because we usually use abbreviations in order to make it easier, and according to the context in the medical report, we can we can understand the meaning of each one. So you get the information, practice with that, and well, let's go ahead. I decided, well, at the beginning I said that we were going to talk about the eyes specifically because it's a topic of the course, but I decided to add the ears because they are special senses, because of all the functions and how it is working. So let's take it in count. Again, the anatomical review of the eye. We have the external parts, everything in English at this moment. Here we have the major structures of the indexa and eyeball, so we can check all of the details for taking it and memorizing. Of course, I'm going to take these slides, these pictures for the test, not all of them, all the presentations, but the most important, I mean. Now we have the structures of the eyeball in a cross section in order to check. It's the same as in Spanish, obviously, but now we have to exchange our information into English and then get that the writing down way is correct when we use the why, how we can change the order. That's not a good, a difficult situation. I mean, because we all know this information, just practicing and reading, we can get it. Now we have the details of the anterior segment and the posterior segment. Just again, anatomical review, checking and practicing, it's possible to make it. And now we have the flow of aqueous humor in the anterior segment of the eye, how it moves, and then the 6 muscles arranged to the 3 pairs, okay, for moving the eye. We all know these structures, these situations. Now, talking about the anatomical review of the ear, we have lots of details here, and the writing down way is different from Spanish, of course, but it could be maybe a little different in some details, but it's not a greater, a harder job. So let's practice, do it. And now we have the inner structures in a cross section, all the details that I think this slide is nice. And we can check the name of the 3 bones into the ear. Malleus, incus, and stapes. It's different from Spanish, of course, but we can do it. Now we have the schematic of the normal tympanic membrane, seen as an external auditory canal. And we have this, the structure of the, I forgot it. Well, we have all of this structure with details. Okay, so let's go ahead. Again, considering the structures and the combining forms from the eyes and the ears, we have lots of details here, lots of ways of combining. For example, about the eyes, we have the opt, opti, opto, optico, ophthalmo. Okay, with the iris, iri, iro, iris, irido, and irit or irito, depending on the suffix we are going to construct. About lens, phaco and phaco, you can see just changing the C and the K, and the meaning is the same, just a detail in the grammar explanation. But the retina, retino, and that's all. The lacrimal apparatus, dacrocystito, and lacrimo, you can watch it. About the ears, we have ocuus, accused, audio, audit, auto. Okay. The other ear, middle ear, and either ear. Other ear, pin or pinny. Middle ear, mirroring or tympan. Inner ear, labyrinth or labyrintho, depending on the suffix we are going to add. And again, here in this slide, of course, we have suffixes and prefixes and the words to consider in the way of writing down. We have the meanings here, practice on this, check the vocabulary. We have lots here. For example, we know the kerat or kerato, horny, hard, and it's referring to cornea. So take it in account. Check this because here we have the key of understanding the medical term. And now we have this slide showing us the examination of the eye. Eyes, of course, has a process to practice on, to take it in account, and then to practice. I mean, in that way, we can study this. Melissa, can you listen to me? Melissa? Well, Denise, can you listen to me?
Yeah. You want me to read?
Yes, please read this slide. It's in order to take a participation.
Okay. Examination of the eye. Look for squint, strabismus.
Yeah.
Dropping of the upper lid, ptosis, or oscillation of the eyes, nystagmus. In lid lag, the upper eyelid moves irregularly instead or smoothly when the patient is asked to look down. Next, how do you pronounce examine?
Examine.
Examine the pupils and note whether they are equal in size, they are regular in outline, evenly circular, they are abnormally dilated, large, or constricted small. They react normally to light, accommodation, and accommodation focus on near objects. They test their reaction to accommodation. Ask the patient to look into the distance, hold your finger in front of their nose, and ask the patient to look at it. The eyes should come together or converge, and the pupils should constrict as the patient look at the fingers. Check also the cataract opacity of the lens.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much. So you can see here we have lots of new words, new Latin words for taking in vocabulary. The squint, strabism, dropping, the ptosis or oscillation, the dysnagmus, and the lid lag, how the eyes keep moving while the patient is looking down. So in that order, you can check and practice and memorize this. Of course, some of them are medical terms and we cannot change, we cannot use synonyms because they can be mixed in the correct way of expression. We have the converge, the constrict, and these specific words to talk about. Moreover, we have the regular in outline if they are aligned, or dilated or constricted. We have the accommodation. So practice with that. We all know this. We have the idea, just we need to translate. About the examination of the ear, we all know that we must use the otoscope. With the otoscope, we can check the tympanous membrane and then check if everything is okay. The tympanus or the eardrum are synonyms. Eardrum is the common word, the common way of expression about it. And the tympanus is for us, for medical term, okay? Then we have, as an information slide, what to expect during an exam. And here we have 8 steps to follow, just an information, just for practicing the vocabulary and taking into account the expressions that are useful in order to take this evaluation. And well, in that order, we can check what can a comprehensive eye test detect. We have here 5 names of pathological situations in order to practice, just to get more vocabulary. And now we have an interesting and very important situation, the hypertensive retinopathy, because we also don't take in count usually, and we must sometimes lose this information. We have the hypertensive changes in the retina, and the retina can be classified from grades 1 to 4. 1, silver wiring, increase in the light reflex of the arteries only grade. The grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. Grade 1, plus arteriovenous nipping, indentation of veins when they are crossed by arteries. Grade 2, plus flame-shaped hemorrhage and cottonwood exudates. Grade 3, plus papilledema. So you can see these details are just for taking into account the way of expression. Okay, for check work using the correct expression, for example, cottonwood exudates, okay? And now in this picture, this drawing, we have a referral, a graphic that is showing us the same description. Talking about the pathologies of the eye, of course, we have a lot of situations to take in account, from the highlights, additional and DEXA pathologies, the uvea, cornea, iris, and scleras, and again another list. The eye as a fact, as its own structure, the refractive disorders, functional defects. So consider this slide as a very important one. And talking about the pathologies of ears and hearing, we have this chart that is showing us some details: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear, and hearing loss. Of course, all of them have an expression to consider, to talk about, just as an information in order to get maybe more vocabulary. Abbreviation relating to the eyes, and relating to the ears. We have OD, OSOU, AD, ASU, easy. At this moment, they are easier, not very complicated. But now we have details that are related to the special senses. We have some pathologies described like cataract, astigmatism, conjunctivitis. We have the emmetropia, we have the glaucoma, the macular degeneration, the slit lamp examination. So details for taking in count. Now let's talk about infections. Infections, it's very, very long situations maybe to take in count. Luis, can you listen to me?
Yes, teacher.
Can you read this slide, please?
Yes. Infection, the invasion and growth of germs in the body. The germs may be bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi, or the other microorganisms. Infections can begin anywhere in the body and can spread all through it.
Okay, microorganisms. It's not a comfortable word, I know, but that's a way of pronunciation. That's okay, don't worry.
Okay.
We all are learning about it. So considering this information, we can see, and again, black and words were taken in account the new vocabulary and definition. Microorganisms are in that way. Let me read. Infections differ from other diseases in a number of aspects. Most importantly, they are caused by living microorganisms, such as viruses or bacteria, that can usually be identified, thus establishing the etiology early in the illness. Many of these organisms, including all bacteria, are sensitive to antibiotics, and most infections are potentially curable, unlike many non-infectious degenerative and chronic diseases. So you can see, talking about this, we have more vocabulary, curable and infections, and again, microorganisms. Going ahead. This slide is showing us the communicability. That is another factor which differentiates infections from non-infectious diseases. Okay, to consider these vehicles, these ways, these steps for being infected, how to spread a communicable disease, it happens. Well, it's showing us this process, okay? Transmission of pathogenic organisms to other people, directly or indirectly, may lead to an outbreak or epidemic. Outbreak is how the infection starts, the patient zero, we all know this definition, and then it can go so fast and take an epidemic range, as now in the way we are living these last years. Finally, many infections are preventable by hygienic measures, by vaccines, especially live attenuated vaccines such as rubella vaccine, or by drug prophylaxis, for example, chloroquine to prevent malaria. Now we have in these pictures some ways to prevent that kind of infections to get spread. Okay, wash hands, use soap, avoid crowds, use masks or surgical masks to avoid shake hands, use disinfection, okay, disinfection. Now when to wash your hands, we all know when it's the better moments to do this, just as an information slide for taking in account. And we have this is important, that we have some expressions here. Ivana, can you listen to me?
Yes.
Can you read this slide, please?
Microorganisms include bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, such as the parasite that causes malaria.
Yeah.
Es que me tapa, perdón. Another general word for these pathogens is microbes. Patients often refer to microbes as germs or bugs. Soil microorganisms, bacteria,
Yes.
fungi, algae, protozoa. Notice the common expression for acquiring an infection disease. Could he have picked up some disease from the dog? I think I caught the flu bug that's going round.
Thank you so much, Ivana.
Okay.
So you can see, at this moment, we are checking, well, again, a parasite, a new word that was not being read, and another general word of pathogens are the microbes, or macrobes, as Ivana said. And patients use germs or bugs, very common expression to talk about them. So consider this in order to make the correct maybe interpretation of what patient says. Our common expressions, very important way, how patients can talk about it. They said, could he have caught or picked up? These two verbs are very important because it's the way they refer to us, and we have to not to use the same expression, we all know this, but we have to understand what they are talking about. Could he have caught some disease from the dog? Could he have picked up some disease from the dog? So we see, don't forget these verbs, it's important. And of course, we are going to take an evaluation of this. I think I ever caught or I picked up the flu bug. You can see the patient talks about bug instead of microbe or bacteria or virus. It's not the classification doesn't matter to the patient. Just for them everything is bug or germ. Bug is most common. Talking about fever, Again, we have a report, a key report about fever, and then in the other chart we have some words, some definitions, and some blocking words to consider. Alejandro, can you listen to me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Please read this slide.
Okay. Fever. A 24-year-old man presented with a fever which he had for 3 days. On the third day, he had a severe attack of fever with sweating and rigors. The only past history of relevance was hepatitis 4 years earlier and glandular fever, infection with Epstein-Barr virus. At the age of 18 years, he had returned from Africa 3 weeks previously. Fever, pyrexia, also remember pew, pyrexia of unknown origin. Fever also known as temperature. I got temperature. Adjectives, feverish, febrile, and pyrexial. Opposites, afebrile, apyrexial. Some symptoms of fever, sweating, rigors, severe shivering, and sensation of coldness, also known as chills.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. So you can see, it's not rigors, it's rigors. But that's okay with rigors. So you can see the pyrexia, the PUO, the PU, yeah, the pyrexia of unknown origin. It has criteria specific, of course, we know all about it. And fever, also known as temperature. You can see now synonyms: fever, temperature, or pyrexia, in order to consider this. The adjectives, as Alejandro was reading, feverish or febrile, and pyrexial, and the opposites. So don't worry, and more symptoms, the sweating and the rigors, the chills, and well, very common situations to take in account, and of course to start reading and well, not mixing the meanings. Well, in this chart we have common signs and symptoms when we talk about infections in general, and we have some ideas. Of course, we receive an infection in our body, it starts spreading, and we have lots of problems at the beginning before going to the doctor, before going to look for assistance, medical assistance. And we have some general ways of checking this. Talking about the fever, for example, we have several medical conditions. So we know fever is a general symptom, then it's a sign when we can prove it. And then, of course, we have to look for the origin of this. We have to look for the cause and control it. The headache, again, is very general. We have to check and look for the situation. It's not easy at the beginning. The conjunctivitis, usually caused by virus and bacteria, so taken in count. In this slide, I'm showing you the most important causes or bacteria that are giving the situation. About the intestines, for example, diarrhea or abdominal pain, we have some situations and microorganisms that can support why this situation is happening. So check this slide, read the information, and then let's practice with this tomorrow. Now we have these different criteria to take in account about bacterial versus viral infections. The bacterial infections, the key signs include symptoms lasting longer than 10 to 14 days. Fever can become exceptionally high. Fever gets worse over time rather than improving. So without treatment, of course, the situation is going to be worse. About a viral infection, the key signs include, if due to influenza virus, the flu, symptoms respond well to antiviral medication within the first 48 hours. Fever eases with time, and fever is uncomfortable, but usually not dangerous. So we all know, we all get the flu. We all know had that experience. It's a situation that we can control. Going ahead, we have another slide just for information, bacterial versus viral infection. We have the differences in each color, and in the middle, in the lightened space, we have the common situations. Just as an information, read this and take the vocabulary that it's important. And now understanding symptoms, we can check the differences between COVID-19, cold and flu in order to consider which is the symptom in the green column, and then the difference between COVID, cold and flu, just as an information again. It's for practicing vocabulary, maybe more symptoms in the list, and then practicing this, okay? Now, again, classic signs of infection with additional signs of infection. We have more vocabulary here. Practice this, and well, it's about a wound infection that is causing sepsis, that is causing a very hurtful situation to take in account. Talking about sepsis, we all know the definition of this. We all know the idea, and nowadays the criteria of sepsis is changing. There are new articles that are explaining these situations, I mean, and it's important to take in account, to practice with them and consider. At the beginning, the sepsis had two clinical stages, the severe sepsis and the septic shock, and was introducing a new diagnostic tool, Quick SOFA or Q-SOFA, that the scales that are helping us to understand how bad was the situation, how difficult was it for the patient in order to take the best decision and choose the best treatment. The definition of sepsis and septic shock is going to be the same. It doesn't matter the new classification, now it's appearing in the new articles, but it's the same. Sepsis is a life-threatening organ dysfunction caused by a deregulated host response to infection. And the septic shock is a subset of sepsis in which particularly profound circulatory, cellular, and metabolic abnormalities are associated with a greater risk of mortality than with sepsis alone. So this difference is for understanding how hard is the situation. We all know we have the program, the rule, the key way of working, the sepsis attack, yeah. And we have the symptoms of sepsis in adults, okay? Just as an information for taking in account and taking more details according to symptoms, to signs, to check more vocabulary and ways of expression. For example, the fast heartbeat, that it's not going to be explained, but on the moment in that way, patients may say palpitations, but while evaluating, we have to describe fast heartbeat and then use the value of this, okay? And now, when it comes to sepsis, remember that it's about time. Time is at this moment an acronymous, a way to remember what we are talking about. Time refers to temperature, infection, mental decline, and extremely ill, of course. So we can see with temperature higher or lower than normal, lower usually in the extremes, severe extremes of life, while early childhood with babies, newborns especially, and all these, our grandpas and grandmas. They suffer this lower temperature, and usually we don't consider it as a sign of sepsis. That's why we have to take it in account. And now the eye, the infection, may have signs and symptoms of an infection. We have to find the origin of the situation. Sometimes we cannot do it because it's a spread situation. All of the body is in compromise and it's not easy. So we have to check and try to control the most important specific organs that are affected. The mental decline, confused, sleepy, or difficult to rouse. So taking into account the Glasgow scale we're talking about, and it's talking about the integration, how the body evolves and goes ahead to the situation. So taking into account the mental decline, and extremely ill, of course, could be with severe pain, discomfort, and shortness of breath as the most important symptoms that we can find, the signs that we can find. Now the source and spread of infection, we have more vocabulary here. And we have to take it in count just as information chart in order to consider this vocabulary. Okay, one more opportunity just for this time. Melissa, can you listen to me? Melissa? Okay, twice. Okay, there's no problem for me. We have in this slide just information. It's not for taking a huge vocabulary from this, but we have the expressions endogenous, exogenous, carrying, careers, the Legionnaires' disease in this example, the incubation period, the period of infectivity. Okay, in that way, these definitions we learned during the med school, indeed our preparation, indeed our studies, but we have to take it in count. Infections may originate from the patient, endogenous, usually from skin, nasopharynx, or bowel, or from outside sources, exogenous. Often another person who may be either suffering from an infection or carrying a pathogenic microorganism. Carriers are usually healthy and maybe harbor the organism of the throat, for example, diphtheria, bowel, salmonella, or blood, hepatitis B or HIV. Non-human sources of infection include water, for example, cholera, milk, for example, tuberculosis, food, botulism, animals, rabies, birds, psittacosis, and also the soil, Legionella, the Legionnaires' disease. The incubation period is the period between the invasion of the tissues by pathogens and the appearance of clinical features of infection. The period of infectivity is the time that the patient is infectious to others. So you can see that here we have the definition, the expression, how we have to talk about it and to understand. Now we have the chain of infection, just as an information slide for taking more vocabulary. Why vocabulary? Because here we have more, here you have more ways to talk about it, more vocabulary. For example, in the susceptible host, we have immune deficiency, diabetes, born surgery age. So consider this, read this, practice with this, and well, we can talk about it. And let's remember our usual phrase could be usual phrasal a closing phrase. The eyes might look, but it's your brain that sees. If we don't study, we cannot get the correct situation. Okay. I know it's a long, very long presentation, lots of information to take in count and lots of vocabulary to practice on. But we can do it. We can do it, so let's go ahead. I'm sending the diary pool in order to take attendance. You know, it's important for the academic superior. And well, I hope these slides could be useful for you in order to take the correct vocabulary at this moment. As I was telling you at the beginning, it's just a general view because we have lots of information to take in count. Lots of vocabulary, lots of new words, and well, preparing more details might not be easier because, well, it could be take more time than it's necessary. Until this moment, I have 9 from 12 students. Please, the 3 that are lasting for the pool, complete it. Okay, 2 more. If you don't fill the pool, the attendance is not going to be filled by the academic superior when I send the report. They change it following the pool. On the other hand, well, yesterday we had the workshop, and during the workshop, I was talking to all of the colleagues, and I was explaining the situation that we are going to have next week. We have two presentations more, 2 slides more next week, the 7 and the 8 theoretical classes. And we are going to talk this week about scholarships, med school, the technical part of this, about hospitals and the relationship between different departments, the service, many definitions of the health professionals. Well, it's a lot of information. This theoretical information, I'm going to take it in that way as theoretical information. Not for, maybe not for the test, maybe not all of the material because it's a lot. We also are going to check the structure of the health services in order to take differences between some countries, Latin America, Europe, and United States, because they have differences that are important to consider. On Thursday, and last week, in 1 week more, we are going to have our final test from Module 1. This final test, of course, it's important for everybody because we have to approve it, I mean. Okay, so in that way, when I ask you for reading, it's for taking participation and considering how we are talking. Of course, during the workshop, I take in count expressions we use, how we talk about everything with them. And well, it's important. Everything is going to get a score and then practice. Moreover, in this test, it's not possible to change. I was asking for this with the academical superior, and it has to be on February the 2nd. There's no way of changing because somebody is on shift, on work, on duty. That situation is out of my hands. So try to be present, try to attend that day and solve the test. The test has 100 questions, and those questions are going to be taken from all the slides I'm sending to you. There's no other information that I'm going to take in count. And of course, I have the first homework I sent, and it has a score. And the second week, well, I have lots of problems with my laptop, and I couldn't send you the file. I cannot open the Office programs at this moment, but I'm going to look for a solution until tomorrow before the workshop. And I hope while finishing the workshop, I can send homework from the last week and this week in order to practice for the test. You're going to have enough time to do it a week around. Moreover, about the case report that we are going to practice, maybe in this test, I'm not going to ask about it because we didn't have time to do it together. So case report, referral, letter to referral, and the rest of the clinical history, we're going to work on this in the module 2. So don't worry about the writing down way at this moment. It's not possible and it's out of my hands, please, I'm sorry. But the rest of the evaluation, you know, it's going to be similar to homework. And similar, I mean, we're going to have crosswords, match columns, fill in blanks, and labeling diagrams, the same as we are doing at this moment. Okay. Maybe any question from this? Something you would like to say about that? The test is the 40% of the whole score of the module 1. The score you must get to approve is 51, but well, it's the academical superior rule, yeah, to get it at least. And of course, while finishing the test, I'm going to send the key answer to check your answers with mine. We are going to use the same dynamic. You just send me the answers, and I have 3 hours to send you back the score. Okay. Any question maybe? If there's no questions, that's okay for me. And well, we can go home. And tomorrow during the workshop, we can talk about it again if there's any question, okay? So don't worry. Start reading, please. Start taking account. I'm sending all the information. That's why I give you the slides, because it's the basis of the evaluations, and it's going to be the same in the module 2. I've been sending all the information for you. There's no trouble, no problem for me. The information must be spread. It's not possible to take by own. Okay. Maybe.
Okay, thank Miss. Good
Okay.
night.
Pamela, goodbye.
Thank you, doctor. Good night.
Good night, Alejandro.
Hello.
Good night.
Good night, teacher.
Good night, everybody. It's nice to see you.
Sorry, teacher, I couldn't feel the pool.
You couldn't feel, well, I have 12. Let me send it again, Luis, and
Okay.
maybe you can watch it. Can you watch it at this moment, the pool?
No.
Okay, let me send it again. Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, I send it. Can you watch it?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, teacher,
perfect.
On Monday I couldn't see the pool too.
Okay, yes, you sent me a message. Do you remember that?
Oh, okay.
I talked about it with the academical superior, and she said that it was okay. They take in count your attendance. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, thank you, teacher. Good
Okay.
night.
Good night. See you tomorrow.
See you.
See you. Bye-bye. Well, everything is done. So let's